Thank you for being here today.
Hey, thank you, Dr. Ren.
Actually, yeah, I wanted to jump right in, check in with you, see how you're doing.
Doing good. Every
Good.
day as a site owner is a good day, I think. I was just thinking about next year's going to be my 20th year,
Wow.
and I was lucky enough to start very young at site ownership and gonna have 2 decades done next
Wow,
year.
that's
So,
some amazing experience.
yeah, it's a roller coaster, but it was good times, bad times. Now it's good again. I would say very good now. It's probably a function of knowing what I'm doing to some
Uh,
extent and
uh-huh.
a favorable market. Doesn't hurt to have private equity interested, especially in a place like Yuma.
Mm-hmm.
So when it's all said and done, this probably will be my best site that I've
Wow.
ever had, ran,
Wow. Tell us more
started.
about that. Tell me your story and why you do the work you do. Like, what's going on?
I mean, I just got lucky. I was a pre-med school student, so I went to University of Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I grew up in SoCal, LA, and then Orange County.
Uh-huh.
Went to St. Monica's High School and then Aliso Niguel and Aliso Viejo. So I was in LA County, Orange County. My grades were okay in high school. They were like 3.5. It was right on the border of not getting into UC
Uh-huh.
because
Yeah,
it's
that's a
super
that's a
competitive.
real thing.
A real thing.
My
I
kids just went through it.
At that age, I was not necessarily a hard worker. I think I'm much more of a hard worker now
Mm-hmm.
because I have a purpose.
That's
Back then, I was just going through the motions, whatever, 3.5. And so the only schools that took me for my major, which was pre-med, was the closest school to me was University of Arizona.
okay.
So I
Okay.
went there. It was between there and Colorado.
Okay.
And I literally made my decision based on who had better Mexican food. It was really the decision.
I love it.
It's the truth. I remember I had a friend going to University of Colorado. He was trying to convince me to go. I knew nobody at University of Arizona, and I still chose it.
Mhm.
Better Mexican food, and I could get back to Orange County within 6 hours as opposed to like 12.
Okay.
So
Yep.
that was my criteria.
Yeah.
At U of A, I did about the same amount of rigorous study. So I got even a worse GPA because in high school you can coast and still do well. I think in college you can't really do that.
This is
So you
true.
coast.
This
Yeah,
is
you
true.
coast, you don't do very well, especially in the hardest major on
Yes.
campus. So
Yeah.
it's molecular and cellular biology.
Oh,
So I had this duality of
oh,
like, I don't
goodness.
really want to do it, but I'm also somehow ambitious. And there was like this duality that was very strange. I didn't want to work too hard, but I was ambitious. This duality, which
Yeah.
business forced out of me early. But anyways, I've graduated, but I was not going to get into any med school with that GPA. So
Wow.
I thought, okay, maybe pharmacy school. So I
Uh-huh.
came back home and looked for internship stuff. And then my dad, who was a foreign trained physician from Romania, by the time I moved back, he was actually got his like US equivalent. So he passed all his boards here. Throughout late high school, he started doing that. So he actually was a psychiatrist by the time I came back.
Hmm.
And like our life was totally different. I grew up pretty humble, and my younger brother grew up much better because he's 7 years younger. Well, my dad was already a psychiatrist. So, anyways, these people convinced my dad to do research with him. He didn't know what it was.
Okay.
They came from University of Southern California. I noticed you also have roots there.
Yeah.
And they were fed up with their local IRB and convinced him to do private research. So he's like, okay, whatever. He had a private practice. And so they came in. It was like a SMO before I knew what that was.
Mhm.
They came in, set it all up. They had a full-on staff, full payroll. So my dad told me, hey, your grades are pretty bad. You should just intern here. And there's this job called monitor that they
Ah,
come every 6 weeks. I don't know what
yeah.
they do, but they make good money.
Yes, they do.
So so I was like, okay, that sounds interesting. So let's see. I mean, what else am I gonna do?
Yeah, yeah.
At that point, I just wanted enough money to move out independently. After college, I lived with my mom. They were divorced by that time, but I lived with my mom, and I didn't really have need for money.
Mhm.
So I was just in between. I was still having hope. Some med school would take me. I was looking at osteopathy. I was looking at pharmacy, and I just kept getting rejection after
Oh,
rejection.
man.
And I aced my written part of the MCAT, a like top 90 something percentile.
What?
Flunked the rest though. So this duality was still persisted.
Wow.
And I just started interning at the site. They had me go
Okay.
buy McDonald's for the patients, go buy dry ice, read this protocol, install this cabinet. I was literally just doing
Doing
random
anything
things.
and everything.
I
Okay.
remember my first day there, they were like, hey, install this cabinet we just bought. So I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, I got this degree, the hardest major in campus, and
Right.
now I'm just like installing a cabinet. This is a strange place my career took me to.
Right.
After a few months of this, they taught me how to draw blood too. After a few months of this, everyone walked out. And I was like, what's happening? What are you guys doing? Because I already became friends with some of these staff. Where are you guys going? They're
Hmm.
like, oh, the ownership here. They're like, it's not your dad. He doesn't know what's going on either. But the ownership here, they haven't paid us. Like our
Wow.
checks are bouncing.
Oh no.
We're out of here.
Oh
They're
no.
like, good luck. They were actually like, if we find another place, we'll call you because you get a job. They were looking out for me and stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, and I talked to my dad. He's like, yeah, these guys were, I guess they're like crooks because they made a sister bank account with a similar name as
Ooh.
the site.
Ooh.
So all the revenue they were putting
No.
into the new
Oh
account,
no.
they just left enough in the old one to pay the payroll. But like none of the doctors knew what's going on.
Wow. How
And
soon
then
after you got there did this happen?
this was within 6 months where like the climax. And in the first 6 months, I mean, I expected nothing. The management even asked me, what do I want to get paid?
Hmm.
And I thought that was weird because I'm like, aren't you supposed to tell me? I don't know. And I said, whatever you pay the lowest paid staff. That's what I said.
They were asking you how
They
much
asked
they,
me, how much do I want to get paid? And I said, I
that's a
never been
red
asked
flag.
this. I thought it was too, and I didn't have experience. I said, whatever you pay your lowest paid coordinator. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I think that's fair. And they said, okay. And after I took over the payroll, so my dad had this conversation with me. Listen, these studies are still in my name. You
Right.
can either learn how to do it, or he's obviously going to keep his private practice, but research is done and you need to go get a real job or do something. I actually thought about it for like just half an hour. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. And then he said, okay, it's a lot of work. I mean, you're gonna have to figure out everything. The payees are all screwed up. Everything's a mess, and I'm not gonna have time to help you with anything.
Uh-huh.
And I said, okay, what do I have to lose? I mean, I don't need money right now, and I'm not getting into any med school. So
Yeah.
what else am I gonna do? Sit home and play Zelda?
Uh-huh.
And I did it. It was a lot, Dr. Ren. It was a lot. We had 3 existing studies.
Mm.
I didn't even know who the patients were. I never really interacted with any of them.
Wow.
So I would have to wait. There was no CTMS. I would wait in the waiting room at the reception area every day
Uh-huh.
and see if someone showed up that was for research.
Wait a
There was a
minute.
lot
There
of
was
private
no
practice.
records?
There
There
were
was no.
source, but I didn't know what that really meant.
Oh, okay.
I could
So
look in
you,
the books like where the last visit was and see what the next one was.
yeah.
And they had their templates there so I could follow what I need to do.
Oh, so you were looking at the source, but it doesn't have anyone's name on it.
Exactly.
So you didn't have the records.
Exact.
You didn't have the records that connected.
They did some
the-
weird stuff like shadow charts, and I wasn't gonna look into all that. Like I was just, is someone gonna show up today? I was very simple. If someone shows up today, I have a visit. If not, I don't.
This is crazy.
So I remember someone named Vicky showed up, and
Uh-huh.
she's like, "Hey, I'm in a study." Oh, cool. And then there was like 3 of them, so I brought the bottles. Like, which one are you? And
Oh
then she
no,
showed
you
me.
asked her.
Yeah, because how else we're gonna know? And then she said, "Oh yeah, that looks like the one I'm in." And then I found her
Stop it.
initials, date of birth. I'm like, "Yeah, you are in this one."
Stop.
Yeah, and then we did it. And then the visit's over. This was my first visit, and she's not leaving. So I'm like,
You waiting to
okay,
get paid.
exactly, but I didn't know. She's just staying there and smiling. And I'm like, what's going on? Do you get the meds, right? And she's like, yeah. And she whispered, "Normally I get paid." And I was like, "You do? Wow."
You
I
had
was
no
like,
idea.
"You got a good thing going here. What do you mean?" I said, "You get your medicine for free." And she said, "Yeah, but that's not why we do it." And I said,
Mm.
"Oh, how much do you get?" And then
Mm-hmm.
she told me $100. I was like, "Okay." So I opened my
$100.
wallet.
Oh
Yeah, I
wow,
opened
this
my
was a big
wallet, gave her
study.
100. Thank God I had 100 in there.
You just gave her 100 out of your wallet.
Yeah. And that was my first visit.
Oh,
And then thankfully it went well because she was already randomized, so it's not that hard to follow. Take her vitals, draw her blood. I already knew how to draw blood and do the lab. Honestly, it wasn't that crazy that visit.
okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
they taught me before they left, they had a phlebotomist come in and we all got certified. And
Okay.
so I knew
Okay.
how to draw blood.
So you got
Not
that track.
great, not great at it. I'm
Yeah.
still not great at it to this day, but every now and then I'll still draw blood to stay
I
active.
had that opportunity and I just couldn't do it. I actually am very squirmish about blood. I cannot. I am
I'm
not.
not.
I can't
I'm
do it.
not.
I could have never been a doctor or a nurse. I
No,
just.
I'm not. I'm not skirmish, but I can't do the hard ones. There's some
Uh-huh.
difficult sticks I
Oh
still
yeah,
can't
there's
do, but
definitely some difficult sticks out there. Yeah.
she was a relatively easy one. So yeah, that's how it worked. And for the next 6 months, it was like this. And I slowly started figuring things out because we had monitors come in. And the monitor, I guess they're used to turnover. So they were like, oh, okay, another new
Yep.
person.
That's true
But the
to this
monitor, well,
day.
two of the monitors took me under their wings because their first visits, they just thought I was lazy, which probably I still was, but
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. The monitors came in and didn't sound the alarm
no.
on your
I mean, they
site.
probably did. I didn't know what that sounded like. I'm sure they did internally.
Because I would have been like, I monitored too. I'm like, where's everybody?
I think what they did, they documented it because I've monitored now as well. So they probably documented new staff, new
Mhm.
CRC, not very experienced. They started coming more often. That I do remember. They came more often than I
Uh-huh.
thought.
Yeah.
So then they started training me, and it was actually very helpful. It's
Oh,
just one of the monitors terrified me because, I mean, they're not like this anymore either. But she would come in my office and rip things off the wall and
stop.
say, "This doesn't go there. You shouldn't have done it this way. Why didn't you do this?" But I learned the hard way from this one.
Yeah, they could be scary sometimes.
Honestly, Dr. Ren, I'm not exaggerating. That first year after I took over, so from middle '05 to middle '06,
Hmm.
I did a real world crash course in research with real consequences. It's a miracle. Nothing dangerous happened. I learned the hard way and it took a toll on my health. I got diagnosed with hypertension at that age.
Wow. How old were
Uh,
you?
I was 25.
Wow.
I remember like checking my blood pressure is not normal. I would do the vitals of some of the patients and then do my own and be like, "Theirs is better than mine," and they're in the study. So I had to get that fixed, but it was all high stressed. And that's around the time where my passive work ethic went away and it's never come back. I enjoyed the aspect of breaking it down. I saw it as a challenge.
Hmm.
And then the payments started coming through also. So it's like a nice reward
Hmm.
and there was literally no one to share it with.
Hmm.
So I'm like, okay, it's me and the rent. And then now, little did I know, okay, I was celebrating. There two big things happened business wise. The landlord came. This was 9 months in. So I already had the site went from nothing in the bank to like 90 grand, 100 grand.
Okay.
I thought I was baller. I was like, this is awesome. I don't know why anyone goes to med school. This is amazing.
Hmm.
The landlord came and said, "Hey, you've been current. Unfortunately, before you, the management was 1 year of missed rent.
Whoa.
So I'm gonna
They
kick you
just
out."
told you that. Oh my,
Yeah, he said, "I'm gonna kick you out unless you just give me 50 grand or something like that."
that's crazy. Because
Yeah,
they were
and in
taking your
hindsight,
money. They were
it
taking your money
they
after
were.
the.
Yeah, and I said, "I'm new, this and that." He's like, "No, no, it doesn't matter." He was this intimidating dude. He was 6'4", buff. He was the CEO of the hospital. He came through because the hospital owned the building. And then I just paid him. I mean, I got scared. So I'm like, okay,
Wow.
50 grand. So I only have half now.
Yeah.
And then the IRS bill came due, and my CPA, which I never had, was like, yeah, please pay the state of California 20,000 and please pay federal 80,000.
Oh my
And I was like,
God.
huh? You're supposed to pay taxes? What's going on? Not only crash course in research, I
Yeah.
got a crash course in business and finance, which I
And
had
light.
zero experience. Zero. So I
Yeah.
went to being broke again, actually in debt.
Wow.
And then I started realizing this is a business.
Mm-hmm.
I need to learn the business now. I learned the operation. I need to learn the business. So
Mm-hmm.
I hired my friend from U of A, Joel Ruiz, to be my first employee. And it
Mm-hmm.
was really for the next year, just me and him,
Okay.
like doing the studies, making money. And then we started hiring real employees after that and building systems. And that's when I got into reading books. I would never read books on my own. Started reading books on business, and I went to get an MBA because I felt I didn't know anything about business. And the rest is history. I mean, I've had other sites come and go, and I've been in debt. I've been in really bad debt. I would wake up with cold sweats and look at the bank balances and stuff. And then
Mm-hmm.
I've experienced the really good times where it's surreal that
Yeah.
you're doing so well and
Wow.
kind of everything in between. So I've
Um,
seen it all. I've been
yeah.
blessed with good health, thankfully. And besides that hypertension scare, which I'm still on meds for.
Okay. So you was never
Yeah.
able to get it down and like.
No, it was underlying and it just, the stress triggered it early, is what they said.
Mm,
So I would have eventually got it regardless, but
okay.
it came at 25.
Yeah, that's early. Yeah, no.
Yeah, so that's the origin story. But because of all that, it planted seeds because throughout that process, I'm Googling stuff like, how do you do this? What is this? I remember my monitor asked me, do you have a CLIA waiver? And I didn't even know what that was or what
Mm-hmm.
she said, but I said yes. And then I went back and Googled, but I Googled clear waiver. I didn't know what she said.
You didn't know what Cleo was.
I didn't even know how you spelled it. So I was like,
Yeah,
clear waiver? What is that? And eventually it
acronym.
shows you.
It is.
Yeah, but eventually it said, "Did you mean Clea?" And I'm like, "Yeah, probably."
Uh-huh.
And then I looked, okay, yeah, let me apply for this because she's gonna ask for it soon.
Wow, wow.
Yeah. So
So,
that's planted the seed for the YouTube. Why
okay.
don't you just make a YouTube? YouTube was coming up at that time. It was just funny cat videos.
Oh,
And
what?
so I'm Googling things, but nothing's on there. I'm like, okay, that's in the back of my mind. It'd be nice to have like a YouTube person telling me what to do. And so I just became that over time.
Oh, so how long have you had your YouTube?
2010. I
Wow.
was waiting between '05 to 2010. I was
Uh-huh.
like, somebody's gonna do some content. Somebody, I
Uh-huh.
know I'm not qualified yet.
Uh-huh.
Somebody's got to do it. And every year I said the same thing. I'm not qualified. By year 5, I'm like, no one's done it yet. I think I can do it, but let me try with doing content for patients. It's gonna help me get more patients, anyways. Because by that time I had a full-fledged business. I had a full payroll, 6 coordinators, 3 PIs. Let me do something to get patients. The only people watching were other researchers. So I
Okay.
just shifted the content for them and
Okay.
I became that person that I was looking for.
Yeah. Amazing. I love that story.
Yeah, I
You
mean, that's
you
kind of how
stepped
it
up.
happened.
No one else was doing it, so you did it.
There were people doing it behind a paywall. So I remember Center Watch.
Ah.
Center Watch would
Oh
sell
yes,
you.
I remember Cine Watch. Okay.
They're still around.
I don't hear about them too often, but I think
And
I remember that
I
name.
mean, listen, that's kind of indicative of the whole problem with our industry, but it's starting to go away. They
Okay.
would sell these books. Basically, they would make this thick book, but half of it was just the Code of Federal Regulation they printed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a great business, actually. They just print what's free already, package it, and I remember this thing was like the coordinator manual, and it was like $400, and then there was the PI handbook, and it was another $400. So I was like, okay, what am I gonna do? I have to buy it. That didn't need to be $400. That could have been $40.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when we created, me and Chris later,
Mm-hmm.
our book, because I think it's bullshit that people take advantage of the lack of information
Yep.
and
That's
opaqueness of our industry.
look,
And
they definitely will. Tell me more about what the videos you made for the patients. What were you informing them
sure.
about? What were you telling them?
The first one was, what is a clinical trial? And 7 minutes of me awkwardly. I deleted that one already. It was embarrassing. But what is a clinical trial? The second one was a little better. What is an informed consent? Then I did one, what is an IRB?
Mm-hmm.
No patient was watching, but sites and other researchers or people that wanted to be researchers were watching.
Mm-hmm.
And they
Mm-hmm.
were like, hey, can you do one on delegation log? And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
well, why would a patient want this? Well, they didn't know what that is. And then I just realized, hey, I should no patients watching. I need to just do something for the other researchers because there's potentially a business here.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
just pivoted that way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's still no good content for patients, by the way.
I was gonna ask that because at least over here, that's what we're trying to like focus in on the participants and the community.
There's therapeutic area content, I think that would make more sense. It's
Mm-hmm.
just you have to go get deep on those verticals. But
Mm-hmm.
as far as what's an informed consent, there's no active audience for that until they know about research. So you
Yeah.
really, it's more of a discovery challenge.
And I
Yeah.
think it has to be personalized. That information is personalized, which is why we kind of do that face to face in person with the participant. Once they're interested.
Yeah. The first 6 months of my YouTube, maybe the first year, I can't remember the exact ratio, but I had like a plan. Every 4 videos I'll do for the industry, I'll
Mm-hmm.
do one for a patient. I didn't give up. So
Okay.
I would interview study participants, but off camera, like the
Okay.
camera would be on me
Yeah. Yeah.
and you could hear their voice.
Okay.
And I was scared I was getting into trouble. So I was like, do I have your permission to record? And they were like, yes. So I posted a bunch of those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
And it was cool, but it was like no one was really watching those.
Yeah. Because they were staring at you while you were talking to someone.
Yeah, and I was only doing psych studies at the time, so
Okay.
I
Okay.
mean the patients were entertaining as hell, but if you're someone with another medical condition, the conversation wasn't probably advanced enough for
Mhm.
someone outside of that psych world. But it was
Understand
fun.
to
It was fun.
understand. Yeah. Yeah. I get it. So, how did you become the clinical trials guru? Where did this
That
title come from?
My wife gave me that one. So I was thinking
Really?
of doing the videos. I was like, what's a good name? I wanted
Uh-huh.
Clinical Trials TV.
Uh-huh.
And she's like, well, what about Clinical Trials Guru? And I was like, okay, yeah, all right, I
I
like it.
love it.
It was just her.
Yeah, and it's stuck and it's popular. Everyone knows it, and now
Yeah.
hey, you rolling with it.
I mean, in hindsight, it could have been anything. I think it was just
Uh-huh.
the content was needed. And I
Mhm.
still can't believe to this day, I'm always waiting for someone to do something. And I'm like, well, they don't do it. Okay. Same thing with our conference. Like, someone's going to make a conference just for sites that's not owned by private equity.
Mhm.
No. All right. Well, let's do one. Everything we did is kind of like a response to waiting for something I want.
I love that though.
And then no one did it.
Yeah.
Even Yuma, someone had when I moved here, it was my wife's family's from here. We came here to settle down and have kids and then move back.
Mhm.
And when I was here working from home, I'm like, somebody has to have started a site here.
Mhm.
Nope.
There was
All this
no
stuff.
trials being
There's
done.
a gigantic hospital,
Yeah.
Yuma Regional. They're owned
Mhm.
by private equity from another state,
Uh-huh.
and they do oncology and rare disease. But it's not like the kind of research we
There
do
was
where central IRBs and all that stuff. They have local IRBs and things of that nature. So
Mhm.
yeah, everything was in response to wanting something
Yeah.
and it not being there.
I love that. I think that that is so important, especially now, right? We need innovation. We need
Yeah.
novel things to be happening for us to see change. And I guess we can just go ahead and start talking about this diversity in research. That was going to be my next question. Is like
Mm.
diversity in clinical research, diversity in clinical trials. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Like
We can
what?
talk about it. When people told me, Dr. Ren,
Mhm.
remember '05 to like 2010, before I even started YouTube, I had 5 years of doing this as a side owner.
Mhm.
I'm in psych in very urban Anaheim,
Okay.
and a lot of our patients come from places like South Central LA because one of our sub-Is had a board and care there. So I would go frequently. It's only a 20-minute drive. I
Hmm.
would go frequently to recruit. South Central LA, I remember I went to Watts. everyone there, when I got out of the car, they thought I was an undercover police because I had a Chrysler 300 and I went to go meet a patient in a
Mhm,
building,
mhm.
and the people outside stopped what they're doing and looked at me and they're like, "Oh, what's up, officer?" And I'm like, "No,
Exactly.
I'm not.
You don't wanna have yeah, yeah.
I'm doing research." And they're like, "Okay, sure, sure." And they kept commenting stuff. I just kept walking. I'm not gonna argue. And I thought, why is there an issue with diversity? Like, when I
Okay.
first heard this problem,
Mhm.
I was like, where is there an issue?
Oh,
Like 90% of my patients were Hispanic or African American.
wow, wow.
It
So
was like
you didn't
rare to get a white person in our
wow,
study.
yeah, so you didn't have that problem because of
No,
where your site was and
I
where
didn't
you
know
were
it
going.
existed. This was
Mhm.
before LinkedIn. No one really talked. I mean, at investigator meetings, I would meet other coordinators.
Yeah,
I just assumed it was the same where they're from.
yeah, yeah. So when did you discover this issue? What
Uh,
when would you say what year is
well, I kept hearing people complaining about it, so I'm like, shit, maybe there's some truth besides what I see. Maybe what I see is my truth, but the real truth is what everyone else is saying.
Mhm.
So it wasn't until I started monitoring, I guess. I had a year and a half stint, or actually 3 years stint as a contract CRA, and I would go to different sites and then I would kind of see the demographic. Oh, there's actually rare to find a minority in the studies. It's not my site. My site was diverse as hell.
Mhm.
Then I was like, okay, well, there's definitely a problem. And then I started seeing the Hispanic problem earlier because we ran into issues at my site where we would have Hispanic patients, but not non-English speaking.
Okay.
And we would be told you can't enroll unless they're English speaking because it's psychiatry. You have to do these certain scale,
Mm.
this and that. So I started seeing that even before that, but it still was never a problem for my site. We always had majority minority.
Hmm. And they were not hesitant to be in the studies. What was
No,
your
because
experience with this hesitation and this mistrust
there
that
wasn't any,
okay.
because what I found was if you get one or two patient that's very social, that has
Mhm.
a very large sphere of influence, they
Ooh,
will do the rest of the work for you.
look, look, I talked about this with another guest. Yes. That was her
I
experience.
remember a patient named Morgan, may or may not be his name for posterity's sake, but he would tell me he did a study, completed it. We always treated him well. I mean, we VIP our patients even to this day. He said, Dan, I'm going to have your number ringing like church bells on Sunday. And I was like, okay, man, if you do, like, I'll even get a side gig for you as a recruitment person for our site. And
Yeah.
this guy was happy. He went to work. He
Wow.
literally had my phone ringing to the point where I was like, listen, you got to pre-screen them now. I can't do it. I don't have time to call. And then I have to hire more people. What that guy did,
Mhm.
that dude 10x the output of all these fancy Akirian nonsense. Just this dude walking around his community.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah.
They don't need to pay. The industry doesn't need to pay all these central recruitment and have project managers. This guy was everything. He was the ad creative. He was the platform. He was the project manager. He even drove the patients. And so I had a few people like him. I ended up at our peak where we were doing 5 visits a day for a while. I had 5 or 6 people similar to him in different parts of SoCal.
Mhm.
And they were just, I didn't have to do any recruitment.
Okay. What I'm hearing you say is that the answer is in the community.
Of
That
course.
like you
Of
can
course.
find whatever you need in the community. Go to the community.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it happened by accident. Like,
Okay.
he saw an ad, he replied, we treated him well, he did the study, he liked us.
Mhm.
I'm very talkative, so people tend to like that if they're talkative too.
Mhm.
And like attracts like in those cases. And he was like, tell me what you need, all your studies. I'll get people free. And I was like, this is too good to be true.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is not difficult at all.
Wow. Wow.
Even went, I told them that we had certain studies where we're like, they will not let them in without records. You need to get records. He would even do that. He would have them come in with their records. Like, he would go to the doctors with them and get their records. He
Yeah.
did everything.
he was like their buddy, right? That's kind of
Yeah.
similar
I
to
wish I wish I could still, because now I'm going back in the day, like had his number. Because this was like 06, 07. I
hmm
wonder what happened to a lot of these people, but some of
yeah.
them are still on videos. If you go on my old archives, you'll see them.
Wow. This has been, I think, the third episode in a row now where this has come up, where word of mouth is huge.
That's
And I
all
keep
you
saying
need.
diverse communities. Let's figure that out on this podcast. We like to give recommendations to the research community as well as talk to the community. But I think that's a great recommendation now because, like I said, this is the third time that we've brought
Yeah.
that up. Word of
And
mouth.
here in Yuma, I'm trying to get my staff because I'm not really doing the difference now versus then. This is our third year of the site, and this is the first year where I'm like stepping back and that I'm not on any DOA log or anything. Find yourself a patient like, and I use this archetype, but I'm trying to encourage our staff, Lana, Katie of
Mhm,
Morgan,
mhm,
find yourself a patient like this and they'll do all the recruitment for you. And I think they need to experience it themselves to realize that that's what works. But I'm encouraging them. And we haven't found that person for Yuma yet.
mhm,
We found like smaller versions of that on a lower scale, but
mhm.
nothing where I had someone like him. And so I'm trying to get them to like find those kind of patients, find those kind of people.
I think we're definitely on to something there.
It's not a secret. I mean, it's not that complicated. People get worried. Oh, well, IRB. Where does any law state that after a study, if one of the patients wants to be a contractor for me as far as community outreach, that I can't hire him as a contractor? Like, it doesn't make sense. I
Mhm.
understand during the study, but after, I don't think that's a thing. And no
Yeah,
one, no lawyer's been able to tell me otherwise.
or what if we just make it a program? Because that's what I was thinking. Like, come up with a nice name for it, but a program where participants, if you share your experience with others, get a gift, or
Yeah.
I think that could work.
I think it can too. I think people are afraid.
Mhm.
I wasn't afraid because I was already in a hole. Like nothing I can do is worse than what was going on. So let's just try it. Turns out a lot of those things actually work. I think people are too, everyone in this industry, I've noticed 20 years now, everyone's looking for permission to do something.
Mm,
And there's no one to give you permission. Like an IRB, everyone brings up IRB. Oh, IRB. If I ask the IRB, they're going to tell me they don't know. So what am I going to do now if they don't know? Worry about they might say no?
yeah, I think you're right. Everybody kind of walks on eggshells with
I
new,
don't understand why. And the
yeah, new
FDA
things to
doesn't
do.
care. The
hmm
FDA doesn't care. IRBs, unless it's study specific, they're not getting involved. I think common sense morality of like do no harm applies even to non-doctors.
hmm hmm I think to see change, of course, we can't continue to do the same things that we've been doing. We have to think outside of the box for sure. We have to think outside of the box.
We need more minority site owners, which is
hmm
I've never struggled with that being Romanian. Do remember early on all my colleagues were like white people. And the last couple of years that's changed. We've had a lot of minorities come in. I didn't meet Judy till later, but Judy's always been out there doing her thing. You have people like Dr. Lovey in Atlanta who used to be a
I
client of
know
ours.
Dr. Lovey. I love her.
Yeah, and she's an NP on top of that.
hmm
You are getting a lot more diversity of site owners, which I think is super important, and
Yeah.
I think that's going to help.
Yeah.
But early
National.
on, that wasn't the case.
Yeah. And this is one of the things that National Medical Fellowship, I'm dropping their name here, National Medical Fellowships. Do you know about them? They
No.
are an organization who actually trains diverse doctors to be PIs.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I think they're trying to do maybe like four different cohorts every year of these
Okay.
trainees, and so
But
they're
I
they're
mean,
doing
yeah,
great. They're doing great things.
we need more of that. But I think the industry actually has been doing a good job of diversity as far as in the workforce
hmm
and as site ownership. And hopefully that's trickling down to the patients. I think it
Exactly.
slowly is.
Yeah, it's slow,
And
but
it's still
that
not the norm.
yeah.
So my
So
story is unconventional, but I mean, I guess everyone's is to some extent.
Again, I think that's our takeaway today. Your story is such a story of innovation and figuring things out and figuring out what works. And I think that that's where we are in clinical research, clinical trials with the issue of diversity. We really just are still trying to figure things out, but we need
Yeah.
to think differently and let's pursue new ideas, bring in new plans to really get this done. I think that it can be done. And I know we still haven't seen a huge change, but it definitely can be done. We just need dedication. We need investments in the community.
Yeah. We need the money to go to the right places and
Mm-hmm.
not to organizations that act like they're doing a lot, but don't actually do.
Act like they're doing a lot.
That's a grift. There's a problem. We have buddies in academia that hold the purse strings. Let's solve that problem,
Mm-hmm.
at least in theory. And then they build these schemes where majority of the money gets stuck in that bureaucracy,
Mm-hmm.
and occasionally a little bit trickles down to the community just to show something's happening, to make an Instagram post or a LinkedIn post. Here's a new clinic, an investment, or it's not happening for real. And I don't think those think tanks are the ones execute anything. Like, what have they actually ever done besides influence policy, which is huge, but pragmatically, what have they done? You have to start looking at who you're giving money to. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what is their track record with business?
Exactly. Yeah, we need some accountability,
Yeah.
especially with the new guidance that have come out. There needs to be some accountability with the sites. It can't just be, oh, we give the same funding that we've been giving to the same people, and they're still saying, oh, we don't know how to recruit diverse groups. It has to, okay, well, you know what? Because you don't know how to recruit diverse groups and you can't figure that out, we're gonna go ahead and give this to someone else who has
Well,
already shown, or
this
has new
industry's
ideas.
this industry is incestuous. Yeah, and it boils down to whoever can go to the most conferences and schmooze the
Mm,
people with the purse strings the best gets the funds, regardless of outcomes. And occasionally they'll yell and require some outcomes, and then they'll just run ads or do something that it requires a fraction of the money they have to get some like mediocre outcomes. So
mhm,
you don't really get any innovation unless it's
mhm.
made by real business people. I became a business person out of necessity. There is no other choice. If you don't succeed, it's not going to work. There's no one giving you money.
People who are passionate about this is necessary. The
Yeah.
people that really care. It can't be about money. It has to be about really helping people and really bringing better health to communities. Because I honestly believe that the research discoveries can bring better health to diverse communities where it's needed most, right? We have a lot of health inequities or injustices that have happened, systematic racism, and just like it's just time to focus in on them and serve them. I say that often, to serve the community in this space. And I don't know, industry probably doesn't really understand what I mean, but it really is just to show that you care and know that these are human beings and that's how where we should operate from, not just
Well,
see them as a number.
well, the thing is, it has to be about money because when we talk equity,
Mhm.
what that really means is ownership in something. And when you're giving people money with no equity, you're giving them permission to not care about the outcomes. And
Yeah.
that's what we see.
I hear what you're saying, and I completely agree. I guess I mean when I say it's not about oh, I guess it is. Yes, I see what you're saying. I
The
was gonna
people
say,
with the money need to understand that there's business people of all backgrounds
Mhm.
already doing. You don't need to go far. Just come to Save Our Sites and meet site owners at random. They're already doing what you want to be done at scale.
Mhm.
Why do you still go to your colleague at Tufts University
Right,
who hasn't done anything except write some papers
right.
and give them the money?
And that's what I mean when I say it's not all about the money. It's when I'm talking about the people who are working in the field.
Yeah,
So it can't be just about your paycheck. It has to be like you
right.
actually care.
That's real equity, which I'm all for.
Yeah.
That equity or equality, they get interchanged a lot, but it's not the same thing.
I agree. We're gonna wrap it up here. Do you have any lasting comments that you want to share with the community or with the researchers that might be watching?
Mm.
Anything coming up? You have your conference?
Save Our Sites conference, saveoursites.com. We'd love to get you guys there. Are you coming?
I want to.
March
Okay, I
of
was gonna
25, Oklahoma City.
yes, because I
Okay.
talked to Judy about this.
I'm sure you did. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yes, because we have a participant there that we wanted to have,
Okay.
yeah, come and share his
I thought
story.
I saw your name like on something. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So yeah, I'm hoping to be there.
Okay. So I guess I'll promote that. Otherwise, I'll promote everyone work on themselves and
hmm
improve the outcome, improve the industry little by little
Yeah.
for what you want to see change. If you had a hard time getting hired, figure out a way to help other people so they don't have to go through that hard of a time. If you're a site owner or CRA that wants to start a site, figure it out. There's a lot of opportunities still. There's a lot of
Yeah.
money, more money than before. And I think we need to go back to the practical aspects of this stuff and not complex, like making everything seem so complex that no one does anything.
Or scared to do anything.
Scared. I mean, we can talk all day long about ideas, and
hmm
then I turn around and there's a new study at my site. So, what ideas do I actually need? Here's a
hmm
study.
hmm
Go do it. Like, what idea do I need?
hmm
The
hmm
protocol's written. I don't
Yeah.
need idea.
Yeah.
Just do it. There, at some point, it boils down to doing work.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, you keep doing what you're doing. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And we're going to see change.
Yes,
I think we're going to see change
we
for
already
sure.
have.
Yeah.
We
We're
already
making
have.
change. We're making change. And we will continue to
Yes.
do this important work. So thank you so much for being here, Dan.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
All right.